Well, hey there, neighbor. Are you just dying to get your smelly, loud, rambunctious chicks out of your house and out into the coop? As they've gotten older, you found yourself feeling like you're just babysitting a bunch of teenage velociraptors that can halfway fly, and you're wondering, when does it all end? The short answer is 6 to 8 weeks, but there's kind of a lot of things to take into consideration. In the meantime, there's a few things you can do to kind of help yourself get to that point of them going outside. The first thing is maybe upsize your brooder or even split your flock into 2 separate brooders, because as these birds get bigger, they get pretty rambunctious. After a couple weeks, they're going to be starting to jump around, fly around, knock things over, poop all over the place. Come up, oh boy. Great, got pooped on. It's gonna smell really bad, and that's kind of a lot to handle inside your house. If you upsize your brooder or split it into 2 separate brooders, there's less poop for the amount of bedding that you have, and it's just kind of easier to handle if you have less birds in one brooder, or the same amount of birds in a bigger brooder. Especially if this is your first time having chicks, it's kind of surprising to a lot of people when you start out with these tiny little puffballs of chicks, and then all of a sudden you have full-fledged little velociraptors jumping around your brooder. And at about the 2-week mark is when you want to make sure you have some kind of lid or covering on top of your brooder, because those chicks are trying to jump out, they're trying to explore. One thing that works really well is just some chicken wire over the top. You just want to make sure it's something that's breathable, so that way they don't suffocate in there. You don't want to have a chick jump out of your brooder and come home and find it somewhere in the house or never find it. Just make sure you can keep them inside your brooder. You may find yourself coming home and being able to smell your chicks when you get home, and you might be finding yourself feeling like you need to clean your brooder more often. If you can smell your chicks, you should probably be cleaning your brooder more often. There shouldn't be that much of a smell associated with them as long as you're cleaning it often enough. I know it's kind of a lot, but after those chicks are a couple weeks old, you might find yourself needing to clean that brooder daily. And this is one reason I talked about earlier, expanding your brooder to either a bigger brooder or split it into 2 separate brooders, just to kind of help keep up with that. If you start smelling the smell of ammonia around your brooder area, then it's definitely time to clean your brooder. You probably should have cleaned it a few days prior. You don't want to be smelling that ammonia, and if you're smelling it, then it can get to the point where it's having an adverse effect on your chicks, and it can actually kind of hurt them. So if you do smell ammonia, make sure you're cleaning that right away, and then try not to let it get to that point again where you can smell that. Once they get a couple to maybe a few weeks old, they start to get bored. These chicks, they want to explore, they want to have fun, they want to do all these enrichment activities that they're not able to do in a normal brooder. And what can happen here is if they get too bored, they can actually start pecking at each other, and I'm talking above and beyond the normal pecking order type of pecking. They can peck each other and end up hurting each other pretty badly if they get too bored in their brooder. Now this is the time to start giving them some kind of enrichment, and I'm talking maybe put a branch in there for them to roost on, or you can get a little tray and put some sand in there and they'll give themselves a little dust bath. You can also start giving them treats. If you are giving them treats, give them some grit so that way they can kind of crush those treats up. I'll put a link down in the description for those. And then the treats that we use are actually going to be Grub Terra, and these are by far our favorite treats. We've been using them for quite a long time, and we actually have a discount code that's available. So if you go down into the description below, there will be a link and a discount code there. But what we've done recently is we put a nice big branch inside of our brooder, so that way they can kind of perch on that. They're also jumping up on top of the brooder heater and kind of hanging out on there. But at this point, the birds are really jumpy. They're really excitable. They're wanting to explore and have fun. So try to give them those types of activities to keep them entertained inside the brooder. This is going to lead to happier birds. It's going to lead to less pecking of each other, and just overall make it easier on you to keep them in your house and keep them happy. Hey, real quick, if you're getting value out of this video, head down and hit the like button, because I've got a cougar to feed. Now we're finally getting to the time where you can start bringing them outside. And I'm not talking outside into the coop for good. I'm talking bringing them outside a little bit at a time. Once you have weather that's around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you get some nice sunny days, it starts to warm up a little bit, you can start bringing your birds out to give them a little bit of sun time and a little bit of outside time. Now you don't want to be bringing them outside unsupervised, because adult chickens have predators like raccoons and skunks and snakes and cougars and all sorts of stuff, but baby chicks, they're going to have even more predators that you wouldn't really think about. Maybe the neighbor's cat would be a predator, or dog, or you've got birds that are flying around that are going to think they're food. You're going to have all kinds of things that want to attack your tiny little chicks. So make sure you are supervising them while they're outside. If you can't be outside with them at all times, then I've seen a lot of really cool ideas that people come up with for how to just kind of leave them unsupervised. I'm gonna put a link in the description for my favorite one, which is like, it's a playpen that has a nice cover on it. And with that, you can put the cover on, put the playpen out, and it's gonna keep them safe so predators can't get to them. With this, if you do start putting them outside unsupervised, you wanna make sure they can still regulate their body temperature. So maybe put the playpen or whatever you're gonna have them in, put that maybe halfway in the sun, halfway in the shade to where they can go in the sun and to warm up. And then if they get too warm, they can kind of scoot over and move into that shade. Just give them a nice little temperature variant in that little playpen as much as you possibly can. Make sure you're checking on them every hour or so and just make sure they're doing all right. You don't want them to get too cold, especially this time of year. For us, we haven't been able to bring the birds out very much because here in Utah, it's just been a crazy, crazy winter, like record-shattering winter. You can't see it, but it's April 4th today, and behind the camera, my car is still just covered in snow. It snowed like crazy today, and now the sun's starting to come out. But what we have been able to do is, like this last weekend, we've been building raised beds. So we took the opportunity then and we brought the birds out and we put them in the raised beds with us and let them kind of peck around and have some fun out there. And what that does when you bring them outside is it starts to introduce them to some beneficial bacterias. And as you start bringing your birds out more and more, it's gonna expose them to that bacteria, and that's gonna help them get ready to go outside full time. Now, let's start talking about what milestones they need to hit to be able to go outside full time. The first thing is your bird should be 6 to 8 weeks old and fully feathered out. And I wanna talk a little bit about what fully feathered out means. Let me show you. 1 second. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna explain this to you. Okay, so I'm gonna explain this to you with this lavender Orpington here. We love our Orpingtons. But as you can see, it's got some feathers. Come up, oh boy. Great, got pooped on. As you can see, this bird has quite a few feathers, which it's great, but this isn't fully feathered out. You can still see quite a bit of nice fuzzy down right there around her neck. She still has a lot of feathers that needs to come in. She's nowhere near ready to go outside. So this is an example of when you start to see feathers, yes, get excited because they're starting to get feathered out, but it takes them quite a while. This bird is, I think, 3 or 4 weeks old. So she still has another half of her life to go before she's ready to go outside. You want to make sure that they don't have any more of this fuzzy stuff like you see around here on her neck. No more of that fuzzy stuff. You want them to be feathers all the way. Let me get her purred away, it's kind of chilly. All right, so once they are fully feathered out, you wanna make sure you're looking at your temperatures. At night, you don't want the temperature to drop below 50 degrees. So put them outside, go ahead and take them out to their coop. But if the temperature drops below that 50 degrees, you're gonna wanna bring them inside for the night. These birds are still young, they're still trying to figure out how to keep themselves warm. You don't want it to drop below 50 degrees. But if you already have an existing flock, so you have adult birds outside, this is where things get kind of tricky. Even though your chicks are 6 to 8 weeks old, they're fully feathered out, they are ready to go outside, you can't really just put those birds in with your existing flock. Your chicks are still gonna be quite a bit smaller than your adult birds. You might run into some pecking order or bullying issues, and your adult birds could end up killing your younger birds, so you don't wanna put them together just yet. Now, there are ways of integrating your chicks with your existing flock as you're trying to move them outside, and you're gonna wanna do this before adding them to your flock. And depending on when you're watching this video, you can either see the video we did on how to integrate your chicks right here, or if we haven't made that video yet, you can go ahead and watch this video. As soon as we integrate our flock this year, we'll be making video on that, and once that video is done, we will be putting it right there. So either way, watch whatever video pops up for you, and I'll see you there.